Hello, welcome to podcast number 1. I'm Sam Jenkins. I'm here with Nicholas Dutile and Gabriella Clay. What's up, guys?
Hey.
Hello.
We're here to talk about the world religions paradigm. Ooh. So, first thing, we should set up a definition for this world religions paradigm. I'm here reading out of an article written by Dr. Suzanne Owen, The World Religions Paradigm, Time for a Change. She says, the paradigm actually emerged in the 19th century in order to divide Western religions from others into binary, East or West, or three-part, West, South Asia, and Far East classifications. This came about through different definitions that were being thrown around in the early days of world religion studies. Clifford Geertz, his definition in 1966 was that religion is a system of symbols which act to establish powerful, pervasive, and long-lasting moods and motivations in men by formulating conceptions of general order of existence and clothing these conceptions with such an aura of factuality that the moods and motivations seem uniquely realistic. And there have been other definitions along the time, but these definitions ultimately formed what we have now as the world religions paradigm. I'm quoting here from Suzanne Owen. She says, quote, "For comparative purposes, scholars have placed the different manifestations of religion into various categories, separated according to criteria chosen beforehand," end quote. So these criteria that are chosen help give a building block for thinking about these religions, but this can have strengths and this can have weaknesses as well. First, why don't we tear it apart? What are the weaknesses that we find in this paradigm?
So one of the weaknesses of the world religions paradigm is identity, and the way that we conceptualize religion under that paradigm is a very narrow definition. It doesn't stretch to everything that could be considered religion or everything everyone themselves considers a religion. I read an article or a chapter by Robert Scharf talking about how religion is a Western concept. The world religions paradigm is essentially a Western concept that's been applied to any non-Western philosophy. The example that he gives is Zen Buddhism. A Japanese Zen Buddhist, D.T. Suzuki, took Western theories and ideas about what religion was and applied it to Japanese Zen Buddhism. They didn't originally have the language to talk about religion in the sense that the West does. It's a very different kind of concept. I guess maybe from a scholarly perspective, Sharp was saying that he took what it was at its core and how Zen Buddhists thought of it and applied it in Western terms. It's supposed to apply to everything, but really doesn't.
Okay, so this is really interesting because there are actual practices that are going on in a part of the world that just can't be recognized within this paradigm. And so then now what do you do with it? It seems like there's some limitations to the paradigm itself.
Yeah, I would say so. The paradigm kind of conforms everything to a box of what the Western concept of what religion should be. Underneath that concept, there are practices and beliefs that wouldn't count as religion, but that maybe other people identify as religion.
Yeah, that seems very problematic. What kind of strength do we find in the paradigm, or is it lost?
No, there are some definite strengths, especially when it comes to the education, using the paradigm to help identify these religions as a tool to teach the specific ones without those, I guess, kind of guiding rails to help guide us along the path of, say, Buddhism or Hinduism or things like that. The paradigm really helps us be able to follow that through and teach it in a way that will help the students to know what Hinduism is. The paradigm really helps us to be able to teach it properly, but we also just need to make sure that we acknowledge the diversity of the religions in themselves.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I love those examples. And it sounds like Clifford Geertz's definition, you can apply this definition to more than just what we would consider religions, right? I mean, a system of symbols which act to establish a powerful, long-lasting mood. I mean, that's what the health industry is doing. That's what the gym culture is. Get in here. It's January 1st. Get in here. Work on your body. I mean, those are symbols. I mean, we look at clothing. We look at marketing, and that's something that we seem to have in more than just what we consider religions. And so, studying how those things are related is very interesting. But if we want to study something very specific, if we don't have some kind of model to keep us on track, if everything can now be categorized as that religion. So I can see what you're saying, that having those, I like what you said, those guide rails up can help us to make sure that we're staying focused and not be too scattered. And that goes back to what Suzanne Owens was talking about. That's really great, Gabriella. You said that about the guardrails or the leading rails. Is that what you said? The leading rails?
Yeah, the guiding rails.
Yeah, the guiding
railroads.
rails. The railroad track, right? Because it's for comparative purposes. It's not always necessarily trying to control everything or identify everything.
Right.
But it is for the purpose of being able to do any comparisons. We do have to have some kind of criteria. And so by setting it up beforehand, it can be helpful. Yeah, so when we're considering how this works specifically in school, specifically at MTSU, which is where we're at, you mentioned before the podcast, Nick and Gabriella, you both took this world religions class. Tell me a little bit about what that experience was like, and then compare that to the case-by-case basis that all three of us took in religion society.
Yeah, sure. So, I did not realize this until we started talking about the world religions paradigm. But when I took this class and then going back to how we were describing the world religions paradigm, it's almost kind of identical in the way that they were describing it, not necessarily in a bad way, but just the concept of identifying religion and then studying it unit by unit. And that's exactly what we did throughout the semester. I actually have my textbook sitting right in front of me, and it is unit by unit, one chapter on indigenous traditions, another on Jewish traditions, Muslim traditions, Buddhist, and Japanese traditions. Going throughout the semester, maybe we had a few conversations about a little bit of overlap, but it was mostly just section by section, and I can see how that would be detrimental to students learning about religion, and then after taking this class just being okay, yeah, I know what religion is, and then going out and talking to a Buddhist and be oh yeah, you don't practice anything Christian, do you? And well, actually, yeah, kind of, but that doesn't make me a Christian. I still identify as a Buddhist, and then I can see how that problem would come up.
Yeah, that's great. That's such a great point. I think that actually Owen even wrote about this in Hindu and Buddhist expressions. We have people who know about the scriptures more, and so they are now practicing certain expressions and certain practices. But you have a vast majority of people who are not reading, whether they're not reading the scripture or they don't even know how to read at all. Well, now they're not practicing the same religion. You can't just take the essence or the rules that we have in the textbook. You're going to have to look at what people are actually doing on the ground. When we had this religion society class, taking case by case, we were looking at what did it look like for people to be acting out their religion actually. A great example that I remember from that class was, funny enough, it was also in India when Gandhi was living in his ashram with other people of very low class. I mean, he was helping them learn how to live in cleanliness, how to, bury their excrement, things like this. And I'm sure that the elite are not doing those things. So to say, oh, Hindus do this, well, that's not very so cut and dry. And that's why I also love this comparative religion class that we're in now, because we're really looking at each one of these practices, and we're learning how to understand them on their own basis. So Nick, what did this look like for DT Suzuki to be able to share beliefs himself, instead of us trying to go in and try to figure out, well, what broadly do people believe? Getting it from them, the case by case, what did that look like?
I think that he presented an interesting case because instead of someone coming in and someone from completely outsider was oh, this is what this is, he himself was able to, I guess, present that this is what Zen Buddhism is from a Japanese perspective. He articulated in a way that a Westerner would understand. So I can see how that there would be a little bit more understanding because he's already kind of translated practices and beliefs where others can understand it maybe.
Well, this has been super fun. Thank you guys for bringing in some expertise to the conversation about the world religions paradigm. I will see you guys in class. I'm not really sure how to end this, so thanks for hanging out.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yes.
This was great.